Lydia, an avid collector of antique dolls, found herself drawn to the shop one overcast afternoon. She didn't know why she entered. She'd never seen the shop before, and she'd lived in the town for years. But there she was, staring into Evelyn's haunting gaze. The shopkeeper, a frail old man with trembling hands, hesitated when Lydia expressed interest in the doll. "She's not for sale," he muttered, his eyes darting nervously toward Evelyn. "Everything has a price," Lydia replied with a confident smile. The shopkeeper sighed deeply. "If you take her, don't bring her back, and don't say I didn't warn you." Ignoring his cryptic words, Lydia purchased Evelyn and brought her home. She placed the doll in a glass cabinet alongside her other prized possessions, marveling at the craftsmanship. But as the days passed, she began to notice strange things. The first night, Lydia was woken by the faint sound of a violin. It was soft and sorrowful, a melody so haunting it sent shivers down her spine. She searched her house, but found nothing, except that Evelyn's violin, a tiny accessory molded into her porcelain hands, was now lying on the floor of the cabinet. She shrugged it off as a coincidence, perhaps a result of vibrations from a passing truck. But the next morning she noticed Evelyn's head was tilted slightly, her eyes now directed toward Lydia's bed. She tried to brush it off, but an unease settled over her. Over the next week, the occurrences grew stranger. Shadows flitted across the room, though no one was there. Evelyn seemed to change positions in the cabinet, her eerie smile growing wider each time Lydia looked at her. One night, Lydia dreamed of a burning house. In her dream, she was standing outside, clutching Evelyn in her arms. A woman with hollow eyes appeared in the flames, screaming at Lydia to "Give her back!" The screams grew louder until Lydia jolted awake, gasping for air. Evelyn was no longer in the cabinet. She was sitting on Lydia's nightstand, her head tilted in that same unnatural way. Lydia's breath hitched as she grabbed the doll and locked her back in the cabinet. She felt foolish. Surely she'd moved Evelyn herself in her sleep. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Determined to get answers, Lydia returned to the antique shop. The shopkeeper wasn't surprised to see her. "She's not just a doll," he said grimly. "She's a vessel." Evelyn was made to honor a young girl named Eleanor, a violin prodigy who died tragically in a fire. Her mother, consumed by grief, cursed the doll to trap Eleanor's spirit. But grief turned to anger, and Evelyn became something far darker. Lydia demanded to know how to break the curse, but the shopkeeper only shook his head. "There's no breaking it. You can return her to the shop or you can keep her. But if you keep her, she'll never let you go." Lydia left the shop, her mind racing. That night, as she prepared to return Evelyn, the air in her house grew unnaturally cold. The violin music began again, this time louder and more discordant. When Lydia turned to grab the doll, Evelyn was gone from the cabinet. A childlike shadow darted across the room, and Lydia froze. Slowly, she turned to find Evelyn sitting in the corner, her tiny violin raised as if playing. The doll's head turned, her lifeless eyes locking onto Lydia. "You can't leave me," a voice whispered, soft yet chilling. The next morning, Lydia's house was silent. The police found her lifeless body in the living room, clutching Evelyn tightly. Her face was frozen in terror, her eyes wide open as if she had seen something unspeakable. The doll was returned to the antique shop, her haunting smile intact. The shopkeeper placed her back on the shelf, muttering under his breath, "She always comes back." And there Evelyn sat, waiting patiently for her next owner.